Alright, what's going on everyone? Streets of New Capenna is here, and with it comes 5 new commander decks. So the purpose of this video is just to briefly go over all the deck's core strategies, so you can decide which deck best suits your playstyle, although I will leave a link to the complete deck lists in the description below if you want to check those out yourself. I'll also leave Amazon affiliate links, though please support your local game store. I don't have a local game store, it sucks, but if you don't have a local game store either, then you can check those out if you want, totally optional. Alright, so first off, we have lots of decks to cover, so let's just get right into it. We have Cabaretti Cacophony, which has Kit Kanto Mayhem Diva as the commander. Yes, it's a cat named Kit Kanto. I don't make up the names. It's a 4 mana 3/3 that makes a 1/1 token when it enters the battlefield. Then, during each player's combat phase, you can tap 2 creatures you control to give another creature +2/+2 and goad it. Goad, of course, meaning it has to attack, and it has to attack someone other than you. So this deck is all about sowing the seeds of chaos among your friends. This is the type of deck you're just trying to make all your friends attack each other, and you just stay out of it, right? So it has a lot of ways to make the opponents attack each other. You have Agitator Ant, Gahiji the Honored One, is that how that's pronounced? Probably not, and Life of the Party. So Agitator Ant goads creatures, the Honored One incentivizes people to attack other players because it gives them a power boost. Who doesn't want +2/+0 for free, so long as they don't attack you? And Life of the Party is really funny. It's kind of great. It when it enters the battlefield, each other player gets a copy of it, but the copy is goaded permanently, and it gets a power boost. It gets +X/+0 based on how many creatures that player controls. So everyone gets a goaded giant creature, and they have no choice but to attack with it every single turn, and they can't attack you, right? Kind of funny, and also kind of just evil. On the opposite side of the spectrum are ways to stop your opponents from attacking you. You get Kazul and Orzhov Advocist, for example. The Ogre spits out a 3/3 token whenever you're attacked, and the Advocist basically pays people off by giving them counters for not attacking you. So basically these are, don't attack me, attack someone else. You can get counters for attacking them, or you can give me a 3/3, so go attack someone else, right? And then there's also things like Fabine, Master of Ceremonies. So the first makes everyone reveal the top cards of their library every turn, and you get some tokens or some power depending on the card type, but then everyone draws a card. And that's great, right? Hey, everyone gets a card. Yeah, sure, I'm making everyone attack each other, but look, I'm giving everyone cards. But also, everyone knows what everyone else is drawing. And that's great for helping turn everyone against each other. If someone draws something really good, everyone knows. So you can kind of say, hey, look, that person, they drew a really good card, and well, you're goaded anyway, you might as well attack them, right? That's the idea behind this deck. Master of Ceremonies, it makes everyone choose between money, friends, and secrets, and then that player and you get an effect based on what they choose. So this is like group hugs for everyone, right? We're all happy friends, we're all in this together. Now please just go back to killing each other. The deck also has a token sub-theme. After all, you do need a board to protect yourself. So there's tons of spells that make X tokens, lots of these actually, so you can go super wide with tokens. There's tons of cards that make tokens every turn as well, so you can just kind of sit here and just build this army of tokens. And there's also tons of cards that get really powerful the more tokens you control, either getting pumped up as they enter or getting powered up based on the number of you control, stuff like that. So this makes you very difficult to attack into because you have tons of chump blockers. You also have maybe a couple really big creatures, so you can just sit behind this brick wall of tokens while your opponents have at it, right? And there's also tons of stuff we don't have time to talk about, but basically we're going super wide and super big with tokens while prodding the rest of the table to battle it out amongst themselves. This is the type of deck that can destroy friendships, but I mean, hey, you didn't have anything to do with it, right? Next is Obscura Operation, a deck led by Kamiz, Obscura Oculus. It's a 4 mana 2/4 that says when you attack, target attacking creature can't be blocked. And then another attacking creature with less power gains double strike. So ideally, this is all about attacking the opponent with a big creature and then a small creature with evasion. So first off, the big creatures are things like Rexiel, Silent Blade Oni, Fallen Shinobi. These are the types of creatures that you want to make unblockable because they get advantage when they hit the opponent. And they also demonstrate another theme of this deck, which is casting your opponent's stuff. Merexiel lets you cast instants and sorceries for free from the opponent's graveyard. The Oni lets you cast things from their hand, and Shinobi lets you cast things off the top of their library. So we have big creatures, your commander can make them unblockable, and then they let you cast your opponent's stuff. But remember that the commander also gives a smaller creature double strike. So to take advantage of this, we have things like Thief of Sanity, Daxos, and Shadow Mage Infiltrator. So these can be more evasive, and most importantly, they trigger when they deal damage, and with double strike, you'll get that effect twice. So like Thief of Sanity and Daxos, they'll hit twice and you'll get 2 cards off the top of your opponent's library to cast. And Shadow Mage Infiltrator will draw 2 cards because double strike. So you have big creatures to make unblockable, and small creatures that get double strike, and when all the stuff hits the opponent, you're just going to start casting all their stuff. Cast the spells from their hands, cast the stuff off the top of their library, you cast your opponent's stuff while attacking with unblockable creatures. And continuing with the theme of unblockable creatures, there are a couple of cipher cards like Writ of Return and Stolen Identity. So these are spells that after you cast them, they get encoded on a creature, and then every time that creature damages a player, you get to cast the spell again. So the first will reanimate a creature, and the second creates a token of somebody else's creature. And you can either enchant your big creature to guarantee that it's unblocked with your commander, or enchant a small evasive creature to get that effect twice, right? Because if you get double strike with a small unblockable creature, with Stolen Identity, you get to steal 2 creatures, or with Writ of Return, you get to reanimate 2 creatures. And another thing we didn't talk about is the commander also connives. So connive means you draw a card, then discard a card, and if the discarded card is a non-land, you get a +1/+1 counter. And there's lots of things that work well from the graveyard, like Champion of Wits, which has Eternalize, Skyway Robber, which has Escape, and we also have things like Sun Titan, which can reanimate stuff from the graveyard. So we also have this sort of fill our graveyard, get our stuff back type of theme as well. And there's plenty more, of course. There's lots of removal, there's card draw, plenty of other big creatures we didn't talk about, but the general idea of this deck is you are an evasive deck that attacks with unblockable creatures, you generate a ton of card advantage, and you steal your opponent's stuff. If you like the sound of that, Obscura Operations might be your deck of choice. Next is Maestros Massacre with Hello the Painter as the commander. So it's a 3-mana 1/3 with Death Touch, and it says that your spells have Casualty 2. That is to say, when you cast them, you can sacrifice a creature with power 2 or more to double the spell. You get an additional copy of that spell. So this is a spell slinging deck with a creature sacrifice sub-theme. So first off, to continuously duplicate our spells, we have things like Skyclave Shade, Squee, and Rekindling Phoenix. All of these can constantly come back from the dead to constantly be sacrificed to spells in order to constantly duplicate them. The Shade and the Goblin can be cast from the graveyard, and the Phoenix turns into an elemental when it dies, and then returns itself after a turn. So basically, this gives us a constant source of creatures to sacrifice to double all of our spells. However, we don't 100% need these, because many of the spells that we're looking to duplicate are actually spells that produce tokens, like Dread Summons, Army of the Damned, and Waste Management. All of these make tokens that can then be sacrificed to double our other spells. For example, if we have a single rat from Waste Management, we can sacrifice one of them when we cast Army of the Damned to get 26 zombie tokens. Also, Army of the Damned has flashback, so it can be cast twice. That's fun. Anyway, so you can see that the deck sort of feeds itself. It makes tokens, and then those tokens double the other spells that make double tokens, then those double the other tokens, and so on and so forth. And then there's Double Vision and Extravagant Replication. So Double Vision doubles your spells, and then doubling those spells can be doubled with your commander. So you get to double your doubled spells. So we don't need to talk about what happens when we have the commander, Double Vision, and then we cast Army of the Damned, right? It's a lot of freaking tokens. And then Extravagant Replication, this helps the deck sort of feed itself again. It allows us to create a token of a creature every turn, ensuring that we constantly have creatures to sacrifice for casualties. So a constant source of creatures. Oh wait, what's that? It creates tokens of non-land. No, it doesn't. No, that's not right. What? Hang on. The beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of another target. Oh no. Wait, that means it can make copies of Double Vision. you can use Extravagant Replication to double vision. And then you can double your spells. And then you can make another copy of double vision and double your spells. And then double your spells and then double your spells. Then you can double your spells. You can double. That's that. You know what? Let's move on. Clone Legion. It creates tokens of every creature an opponent controls, and then it can be doubled. It can be doubled. You can double this. You can double this. You don't even need, even if you don't have double vision, you can just double this. You can clone Legion and then double them. And if you have double vision, then you can double them. Cryptic Pursuit. Oh yes, so this helps the deck fuel itself. This is much calmer. When you cast a spell, you manifest the top of your library, which is a 2/2 that can be sacrificed to double future spells. Plus, if the manifested card is an instant or sorcery, you can cast it. So spells make 2/2s that can be sacrificed to double other spells. And then when you sacrifice the token to double the spells, you get another spell. Does any of this make sense? Alright, you know what? There's lots of things to talk about. There's lots of great spells, lots of great spell synergies. I mean, just look at Hex, right? Hex, it blows up 6 permanents, but it can also be doubled to 12 with your commander, right? You don't need double vision, your commander doubles. There are 12 permanents with 1 card. Hex is great, but have you ever tried look, guys, Maestros Massacre is your spell slinging deck, and it sacrifices tokens to double spells. That's what it does. If you want to cast spells and you want to double spells and you want to double your doubled spells, and also if you want to just go make 1,000,000 tokens with spells that you doubled and then you double the double spells, there it is. Okay. Next we have Riveteer Rampage, the Jund deck with Henzi Toolbox Tour at the helm. It's a 3-mana 3/3 that gives all your creatures Blitz. And Blitz means for the same mana cost, you can cast a creature. It gains haste, but it has to be sacrificed at end of turn. However, when it's sacrificed, you draw another card. And Henzi reduces the Blitz cost based on how many times you've cast it. So basically, instead of paying the full price for creatures, you can pay a reduced cost, have haste, but it gets sacrificed and you replace it with a new card. So the idea is we want to play grindy creatures that give us value when they enter and die. This way they can attack immediately, get value, then just get another card from blitzing. So think along the lines of like the Ragtusk, Methodic Slime, Solemn Simulacrum. All of these generate tokens or draw cards, find lands, whatever, and they can be played at a reduced cost because of our commander. They have haste, so they attack immediately, they draw a card when they die, and they all just, get some value regardless. We're kind of like almost slinging creatures as if they're spells. We slam them, we turn them sideways, we get an attack, and then we get some effect, right? All these effects, and we get another card anyway. However, remember that our commander reduces the cost of Blitz. So we have more exciting things to Blitz, like Noxious Gearhulk, Atali, Inferno Titan, big things that do big things when they attack or enter or die. Avengers Zendikar, Tree Shaker Chimera, Woodfall Primus, because they're big things, but their cost is reduced. The Blitz cost is, we don't need to pay these mana costs. We're paying the Blitz, which is cheaper. A Giant Adaphage. Oh, this one is particularly good actually, because we get it for cheap because the Blitz cost is reduced. It hits hard, you'll draw a card to replace it anyway, and you get a token copy of it to keep permanently. So, sure, it's going to be sacrificed, but you'll just get another one, so that's fine. The same is true for Artisan of Kozilek. Both of these creatures are fantastic because, sure, we blitz them into play, but blitzing does count as casting, so we'll get the creature back from the graveyard with the Artisan, but also it hits really hard. It's 10 power with haste. It's got Annihilator too, you get the extra card, and we get the permanent card, right? We can actually blitz the Giant Adaphage, get the token, then blitz the Artisan, get the Adaphage back, all this hasty power, you draw 2 cards. That's what this deck is doing. It's got these big creatures coming in, huge effect, bam, tons of power, tons of damage, and then you get like permanent stuff on the battlefield afterwards anyway. And we also get extra advantage from things like Kresh, Stalking Vengeance, Warstorm Surge. All of these love to see creatures dying. A Kresh will get counters every single time something dies. Kresh sees it and then gets a bunch of counters. Stalking Vengeance and Warstorm Surge deal damage as things enter and die. So not only are we churning through creatures and just replacing them with extra cards anyway, but we're also like getting tons of power out of these as well. And even though you're constantly replacing the creatures with new cards, there's also other ways to draw cards, like with Lifecrafter's Bestiary, Garrick's Uprising, Death Reap Ritual. All of this lets you draw even more cards so you can just keep blitzing with these giant massive creatures. And as you might imagine, there's plenty more we don't have time to talk about, but the general idea of Riveteer Rampage is we're blitzing creatures into play. They're very big, they're very powerful, they hit hard, and ideally they give us some permanent effect after they attack. And also we have some stuff that can work from the graveyard as well to constantly like reanimate them and stuff. So that's the idea. You're a hard-hitting, destructive force as you would expect from the Riveteers Guild. And our final deck is Bdecked Brokers with Perry the Pulverizer as the commander. It's a 4-mana 3/3, puts a shield counter on something when it enters. A shield counter means that if it takes damage or gets destroyed, you prevent that and remove the shield counter. Then during combat, you can give a creature +X and trample, where X is the number of different kinds of counters you control. So that's right, this is a counter deck, but not a specific type of counter deck. It is a get as many different kinds of counters as you can. So we have things like Avenging Hunt Bonder, Slippery Bog Bonder, Wingspan Mentor. All of these distribute ability counters on things. Not only does this give us a bunch of different counters, but it makes our commander's second ability incredibly powerful, because remember, he gives +X and trample. And if you have, double strike and flying as well, that can actually be quite powerful. And you also get a ton of weird random counters like Midnight Clock, Hoofprint of the Stag, Avian Mimeomancer. The name of these counters are mostly just for flavor, but technically they are different kinds of counters. So that makes that pump ability of the commander all the more potent. And there's also like Crystalline Giant. It gets a different kind of counter every turn, like a turn 3 Crystalline Giant alongside Parry on turn 4. That's actually pretty powerful. I mean, it's a different counter every single turn guaranteed, because it can't get the same counter twice. So Crystalline Giant gets big, and then it gets even bigger with Parry. And of course, if we're going to be caring about counters, there is a lot of +1/+1 counter synergies. We get things like Luminarch Aspirant, Primal Empathy, Forgotten Ancient, all of which can dish out or gain +1/+1 counters. And then we also have things like Thrumming Bird, Evolution Sage, Rolesk to proliferate to double those counters. So even though this isn't an all-in +1/+1 counter deck, there's still a lot of +1/+1 counters being dished out, because why not? We also have some really wacky stuff. We have things like Denry Klin, is that how that's pronounced? Bribe Taker, Contractual Safeguard. So Denry, he enters with a type of counter of your choice. You get 3 choices there. And then every other creature you play, you can copy his counters over. So if you give him a +1/+1 counter, everything gets a +1/+1 counter, so on and so forth. Bribe Taker will see all the counters you have on the battlefield, then either copy them onto himself or convert them to +1/+1 counters. So if you have, flying, vigilance, and double strike counters, he can get all of those, but he'll also see like feather and charge counters and just convert them to +1/+1 counters on himself. And then Contractual Safeguard will let you pick a counter on a creature you control, then copy that on every other creature you control. So you can just, dish out a bunch of +1/+1 counters, but also like double strike counters, flying counters, shield counters. Just pick a counter and now everything has that counter. And you also get things like Fathom Sage to draw cards when +1/+1 counters are placed on it, and Resourceful Defense, which will collect all the counters from things that die and let you redistribute them so you don't lose them when permanents are being destroyed, right? So if you have something with a double strike counter and it dies, well, it's gone forever. Unless you have this, it'll soak up the double strike counter, which by the way will still count as having a counter on the battlefield for your commander, even if you haven't moved it. And then when another creature comes into play, you can move it over to the creature, right? Makes sense. We also get some cool new control spells that care about different types of counters like Storm of Forms and Damning Verdict. The first is a bounce spell that actually copies itself based on how many counters you have, and the Verdict will destroy all creatures that don't have counters, which you're pretty good at putting out counters, and it's kind of a one-sided board sweeper a lot of time. But the idea here is you're going wide with different types of counters. It's a counter variety deck. So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely check out Bdecked Brokers. I would definitely say it's the most unique out of all the decks, that's for sure. So yeah, there you go guys. Those are your 5 new commander decks. As I said at the beginning of the video, link in the description to the deck list, as well as Amazon links, but please support your local game store. Be sure to let me know in the comments which deck and or decks are you buying. And in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.